Hello everyone and welcome to the Sky channel and welcome to the last day of the class series. Now we have pretty much covered all the other classes, so if you have watched each of them and you're watching this one, make sure to write a comment below saying that you are now a class expert so I know that you've watched them all. And of course, I'll thank you for being a loyal subscriber. Today we're going to be covering Spellcaster class, and we'll talk about the active skill, the passive skills, the selectable skills, pals, relics, souls, mounts, fruit bonuses that you can get, equipment, your artifacts, back accessories, and tech park bonuses. And in the end, I'll also teach you how you can save a lot of money on in-game purchases in The Legend of Mushroom. So another important thing I do want to mention is that if you have any difference of opinion or you've tested something out and you got different results than something I've shared in this video, please do use the comment section to share your knowledge with others, because information coming from just me is not as valuable as information coming from all of you, because you might have done further testing, you might have a very different situation than mine, so please use the comment section whenever possible. So let's start with the class active skill. So you do 3873% area effect damage, and it extends the duration of stuns from basic attacks by 30%, and that lasts for 5 seconds. And of course, in the final evolution, you are looking at 8536% area effect damage, the extension of stuns by 30%, that now lasts for 8 seconds after you release the skill, and you actually gain an extra 50% skill critical damage for 10 seconds, which is absolutely amazing because, well, as you'll notice soon, you are a very highly skill damage focused class, and your specialty is dealing a lot of damage from skills. So healers were all about releasing a lot of skills. You are about dealing a lot of damage from the skills. Let's start talking about the passive skills. Skill critical rate goes up by 15%, which is lovely, especially as you can see in the active skill, you actually get additional critical damage for your skills. Passive ability 2 increases your attack and hence your damage, which is great as well. Passive ability 3 increases your skill critical damage by 50%, and that's in addition to the one that you get in your active skill in your final evolution. So you can already see a lot of additional skill critical damage piling up for you. Passive ability 4, active skills deal 80% extra damage to targets below 50% health, which is amazing because, well, most of your damage comes from skills anyway. So if the enemy is below 50% health, your skills become even more deadlier, so 80% extra damage is very high. In the final evolution, it goes up to 160% extra damage to targets below 50% health, which is even crazier. Finally, the last passive skill, the next basic attack deals an extra 100% damage after using an active skill. So a little bit of an extra damage for your next basic attack, which is interesting as well. So overall, you can see this class is heavily focused on doing a lot of damage through your skills, and compared to the healer class, you're not releasing as often, but you are doing a lot more damage, and primarily that is through skill critical damage, right? You have very powerful skills. The skills do even more damage when the target is lower than 50% health, but primarily you are getting a lot of skill critical damage from your class active skill as well as from your passive skill. So if that makes sense to you, let's try to see how we can build this class to maximize on the things that it is already amazing at. Alright, now let's start talking about the selectable skills. And of course, we're going to start with the Nature's Renewal and Shroom Shield, which are great options, especially early game when you want to enhance your survivability. Nature's Renewal helps you recover 30% of your health, while Shroom Shield gives you a shield worth 20% of your maximum HP. Easy Breezy and Take It Slow are also helpful. Easy Breezy reduces the enemy's attack by 20%, and Take It Slow reduces the enemy's attack speed by 40%. Both of them, of course, help you live longer because, well, they are debuffing the enemy's attacking capabilities. Meteor Fall can be fairly useful. It actually increases your skill damage by 30%, and you are all about skill damage, so I can see how this can be a particularly useful skill for you. Disarm and Dazzle are two other skills that are good for enhancing your survivability. Disarm disarms the opponent for 3 seconds. Dazzled stuns the enemy for 1.5 seconds, and of course both of them let you live a little longer. And the longer you live, the more skills you're going to be able to release. And of course, that is quite helpful. Smoke Bomb is great as well. It increases the damage received by your targets by 30%, and that is pretty much all damage, so it doesn't specify a single type of damage, therefore meaning that it also increases your skill damage, in a way making this a better version of Meteor Fall. So Heroic Descent itself isn't all that fancy, but here's where it becomes useful. One of your biggest weaknesses is a skill called the Blitz Assault, where the enemy becomes immune to damage 3 seconds after they release that skill. And of course they're going to release it the first thing in the battle, so you are going to release all your skills and they're going to do no damage to the enemy, making the enemy survive the first release of all your skills with full HP. That being said, if you are using Heroic Descent, the hero that comes through lasts for 10 seconds, which means that even after the Blitz Assault effect wears out, there's still 7 seconds of damage that the hero can do. And that's where this becomes a little bit useful, allowing you to deal some damage despite the fact that the enemy might have used Blitz Assault. Wild Gust is good as well. It increases your attack by 15% and therefore you will do more damage. Blitz Assault, as we talked about, it does a lot of damage, 5829 at level 1. And of course, as we talked about before, it gives you 3 seconds of damage immunity, helping you live longer and becoming a very strong counter to mages. Now you might be facing other mages, and of course you want to make sure that you make their first release of skills useless. So another very good skill for you to have. Blade Piece is also helpful when you're dealing with very strong opponents with a lot of health. It actually does a reasonable amount of damage and then makes the enemy lose 7.5% of their maximum health over 5 seconds. Definitely useful as well. Clone Strike is good. It creates a clone with 30% of your health, which is great, and essentially it's a better version of a shield in my opinion. And the clone lasts for 10 seconds and it also does 200% damage with each basic attack. So it's not just a shield, it actually does damage, making this quite useful. The next one I'm going to talk about is the Crimson Moonfall. So you can see 2098% damage, and you might be thinking that's low for a pink skill. Well, each successive cast increases the damage by 50% and it stacks 3 times. So as you can imagine, by the 4th time, you'll be doing a ton of damage with this skill. And the best part is only 8 seconds cooldown time. So this skill gets released very often. And as you can see, the damage keeps increasing by a lot. So definitely one that you must have if you want to deal a ton of damage to the enemy. Of course, it might also crit, and that might make the damage even higher. Finally, the Star Array, which is another must-have for your class, 4330% damage and increased skill crit rate by 10%. Now we talked about the fact that you are really built upon skill crit damage, so getting the extra 10% skill crit rate is a must-have. But after that, it says that for every 1% skill crit rate, gain an additional 3% skill crit damage, and the effect lasts for 5 seconds. So you already probably have a bunch of skill crit rate that you're getting from other sources. Add all that up and then multiply that by 3, and that's the amount of skill crit damage you're getting from Star Array. So as you can imagine, absolutely wonderful and a must-have for your class. It can actually help you do a lot of damage from your skills, especially when you work this along with some of your high damage dealing skills like Crimson Moonfall. Imagine how much skill critical damage you could be doing if things work out this way. So if I had to pick 5, of course, the Star Array is going to be in those 5. It's a must-have for your class. The Crimson Moonfall, another absolute must-have because of the amount of damage that it can do. The Clone Strike to help enhance some of your survivability and also do some damage to the enemies. Blitz Assault, because you might be facing other mages and this can actually be an extremely valuable skill for you. So definitely have this with you because it can really help you win battles. And I'd probably go with Dazzled for some extra stun. And the reason why I particularly chose this is because if you remember, our class active skill actually increases the duration of basic attack stuns by 30%. Now you must be thinking, well, Dazzled is not a basic attack stun, it's a skill stun. That's absolutely true, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to build up on our stuns overall, and therefore the ability of your Dazzled is also going to get enhanced because there are certain pals that we're going to use that actually work well with stuns, and not just basic attack stuns, also skill stuns. So it's going to make sense to you in a bit. And of course, these are my recommendation of 5 based on what I think makes the most sense. I also think it makes a lot of sense for you to test out different options yourself and then decide what works best for you. Alright, now let's start talking about pals. And the first pal I want to talk about is the Treasure Dragon. Of course, it being a pink pal means that it has a pretty high damage multiplier and attack speed, but the deploy effect is what we're going to focus on. Increase basic attack crit damage by 50%, which is nice to have, but that's not what we are using it for. If you look at the next line, it also increases skill crit rate by 20%. Now that is what we are after. So a definite must have. You're getting that skill crit rate, and you do want to maximize your skill crit rate because most of your damage is going to be coming from skills, and you would like all of that to actually crit and hence increase the damage significantly. Not to mention, if you do have star array as well, this will actually increase your skill crit damage as well by 60%. So it works out really well for you. The next one I'm going to jump towards is the Warlord Hydra Sprite, and the best thing about this is that it actually increases your active skill energy regeneration by 25%, and what that essentially means is that you get to release your skills more often. Now, as I mentioned before, you're all about dealing damage through skills, so releasing them more often is something that you absolutely need. The Fiery Tail, it increases skill damage by 60%. 60% is quite a lot, so this makes this quite a helpful pal to have. Next, the Cat Prince. After using active skills, it detonates the enemies, dealing 200% damage. And of course, hopefully you'll be using active skills very often, so this can add up to a bunch of damage. Let's not forget about the Alpine Fox. Now remember, I was talking about having pals that actually help with your stuns, not just the basic attack stuns, but all stuns. Well, this is the pal I was referring to. Extends stun duration by 30%, which is great because, well, if the enemy is stunned, they're not going to be able to damage you, but you will be recharging your skills, and once it's ready, you'll be releasing those deadly skills on the enemy. But that's not it. You actually deal 25% additional damage to stunned enemies, and this is the best part. Imagine if you're dealing a very powerful skill and the enemy just happened to be unlucky enough to be stunned during that time, and the odds of that are going to be high because we're going to build our class to do a lot of stuns. You are getting a 25% extra damage, which is absolutely amazing. So I guess now you can see why Dazzled made more sense than Disarm, even though Dazzled was 1.5 seconds of stun and Disarm was 3 seconds. This is one of those reasons. So if I were to pick 5, those would be my 5, but I do know that the Wealthy Lizard can actually become quite helpful as well with its extra pal damage, and that's something that you are able to build upon if you decide to prioritize it. And the Hipster Tortoise is quite interesting as well. It actually gives you a pretty decent amount of shield when your health goes below 50%. And of course, if you live long enough, you can release it multiple times. That covers our pals, and now we're in a good position to start talking about relics. Alright, let's start with the green relic, and of course the Demon's Mask is the best option here. Increases skill crit rate by 5%. Of course, we're building on skill crit rate, and that is why this becomes absolutely necessary for you. The blue relic, I think that the Thundercaller Kite is the best option here. After you use active skills, it deals a bunch of damage, and this damage actually increases as you upgrade this relic further, and hopefully you'll be releasing skills quite often, so this damage does build up. For the purple relic, I'd go with the Metamorphic Crystal because it increases the attack speed of your fox, making it fairly useful. And for the yellow relic, I'd either choose the Stone Red Tomb if survivability is an issue. Otherwise, I'd go with the Flame Book to increase my attack because remember, you are an offense-driven class, so you do want to increase your attack and damage wherever you can, with the exception of if you're not able to survive long enough to release the skills. That's where the Stone Red Tomb comes in. For the orange relic, I would definitely go with this one because it extends the duration of your star array by 50%. Now remember, star array's duration was 5 seconds. With this, it would go to 7.5 seconds. And also remember that a deadly skill, Crimson Moonfall, has only an 8-second cooldown period, but you have the Warlord Hydra Sprite. So that should reduce it to a point where you are almost certainly going to release Crimson Moonfall within the duration of your star array, which of course is absolutely amazing because now you're going to have a very strong Crimson Moonfall, which is most likely going to crit and do a ton of crit damage as well. So you can see how things are lining up for you. Finally, the red relic, I'd go with the Abyss necklace because, well, we've been talking about Crimson Moonfall so much, why not increase the damage of that skill even further by 30%? So an absolute must, Abyss necklace. So that covers our relics. Now we are going to go and talk about our souls. Now, when we talk about souls, the best souls that we need actually come in through Soul Selection Pack 2s, which are particularly hard to get. So you can get them in the Glory shop, but of course it costs 4,000 points, and you need to decide if you're going to prioritize this or the Awakening Crystal because, well, you want to get to the final evolution of your class, making this something that you're likely going to get quite later on. Now you can notice in the Red Soul Selection 2 pack, you can get the skill damage soul and you can also get the skill critical damage soul, which are the two souls that are the most valuable for you. And of course, when you do get them, you can simply go ahead and fuse them with the other soul. So for the skill crit damage soul, you fuse them with the critical damage bonus soul, and that gets you a pink soul. And of course, that is lovely. And I guess we've already discussed on how important skill critical damage is. So definitely a must have. And for the other one, the skill damage, you can fuse it with the basic attack damage soul, getting you that extra skill damage that you so desperately need. Now, of course, with this fusion, you also get a random third stat, which can probably help you out as well. So those are the two most valuable souls in my opinion, but of course the attack soul can also be fairly useful for you to deal some extra damage. So now we can go and start talking about our mount. So mounts are a wonderful way to get a bunch of health, attack, and defense, which is amazing, and you also get a bunch of evasion, which is great for your class as well because evasion means that you are dodging more often, which means you're living longer. When you go to the Empower tab, you can get certain additional stats. That being said, the ones that you get are random, so you don't get to pick which you get, but of course the skill damage is a very good one for you, and hopefully you do get that often. And finally, in the Advanced tab, there are two advanced mounts that I want to talk about. The first one is Cloud Drifter. You can actually get this from 20 Skyrider passes, which means you don't necessarily have to spend to get this. And of course, it is really good for your class. Once you unlock it, you get a global 10% extra attack, which is passive. So you don't actually need to be using the Cloud Drifter to actually have this effect. You just need to unlock it. And then if you look at the actual skill, it increases your skill crit rate by 10%. Which, as we've talked about before, is amazing because you are all about skill crits. And then after a skill critical, it also boosts your attack by 20% for 5 seconds. So if one of your skills crit, you get extra attack, so more damage for the next one. And of course, as the name may suggest, the Magic Carpet is another good choice for you. Once you unlock it, you do get 10% extra global attack, but after casting skills 6 times, it completely restores the energy of one of your random skills, so you can release it immediately after. This can of course become quite useful, and hopefully it chooses the skills that are the most impactful. That covers our mounts. Now we can talk about fruit bonuses, and here I think the most important thing for you is to get as much skill damage as possible, right? Because we are building on skills. Most of our damage is coming from skills, and trying to maximize the skill damage is the best option in my opinion. But if you're struggling with survivability, you could decide to choose health as an option as well. But if I were to pick, I would go all 5 skill damage. Now, when you talk about the equipment, I think the two most important attributes for you to focus on would be your skill crit rate and your stun. And this would be no different than the healer class, where you're also going for these two because stuns help you live longer, and you're building on a little bit of stun through your Alpine Fox. And of course, your class active skill actually increases the stun that you get from your gear by 30%, making stun fairly important for your class. So if possible, try to get a bunch of skill crit rate and a bunch of stun in all of your gear. That being said, do not be too tempted and reduce the quality of your gear, because that will negatively impact your base stats. And based on some people who tested it out, the reduction in their base stats due to the reduction in the quality of their gear wasn't worth the fact that they got the right attributes. So try to make sure that you're not reducing the quality of your gear to get the right attributes, but rather try to get the right attributes while maintaining the quality of your gear. Next up, artifacts. Now again, they're an amazing way to get health, attack, and defense, and also ignore evasion, so the enemy can't dodge you as much as they would like, which is of course helpful for you. And then if you go to the Morph tab, in my opinion, Eye of the Raven is the best option available out there. It also looks really cool. Other than the fact that it gives you a 10% global health when you unlock it, it also has a special ability that it casts an equipped active skill at random every 20 seconds. And the first one gets released 2 seconds after the battle starts. Quite helpful, and hopefully you'll be casting Star Array very often and hence dealing a lot of skill crit damage to the enemy. Alright, back accessories. Another great way to get attack, health, and defense. And of course, I recommend that you upgrade them equally because the jump that you get every 10 levels is quite high. And of course, the cost of upgrading as you advance through levels becomes quite costly. So it just makes much more sense for you to upgrade them evenly. Not to mention that the handbook upgrades require you to unlock the different tails, which get unlocked once your feathers reach a certain level. Talking about talents, I think that the bottom right talent is always amazing because while here it's giving you skill crit damage, which you are absolutely trying to build up on. And if you go here, it also increases the duration of your stun. So relatively cheap, you just need to level this up to 10 and then level the attack up to 10, and then you can get both the stun duration and the skill crit damage, which I think is an absolutely wonderful way for you to enhance the things that you're already working towards building. Now when you go to the Morph tab, the Moonlit Wisp is a great choice. Once you unlock it, you get an extra 10% global health, which is helpful. And of course, you don't need to be actually using it to have this. It becomes a passive thing. But if you look at the additional equipped skill, when the battle begins, each release of an active skill increases your skill damage by 1.5%, stacking up to 10 times. After 10 releases of skills, you will have an extra 15% skill damage. Of course, it is built for your class. You are about skill damage, you're about skill crits. Finally, I want to mention the Tech Park is a wonderful way for you to build up your base stats. Now remember, base stats are important, and while you might have a bunch of skill crit rate and skill crit damage, if you're lacking the base stats, you may not see the sort of results that you're expecting in the arena. So do prioritize your Tech Park. Don't just ignore it because it can actually make a huge difference for you. Another thing I'd recommend is to save up your O for the Tech Rush event, which is the event that's going on for me right now. I've already completed all 4 rounds, and I'm also ranking to get some of the Skyrider passes. If you want to watch a full video on all rush events and what you should be collecting for each of them, check out the video on our channel about leveling up fast using rush events. Awesome, and since I still have you here, I want you to know that you can get between 10 to 35% bonus on in-game purchases in the Legend of Mushroom, allowing you to save a lot of money if you're into spending in-game. There are also some amazing days, which are essentially the bonus days, and the upcoming one is on April 26th, which gives you an extra 5% bonus to your base, meaning that you will get a minimum of 15% bonus on that day, so you can maximize that and get stuff much cheaper. I'm gonna link a video in the description below which will go through the whole process in detail with you so you can start saving up today. Alright, that completes this video, and that also completes the 6 class videos in our class series. If you've actually stuck around and watched all 6 of them, do go to the comment section and mention that you are now a class expert. Of course, I'm going to really appreciate knowing that there are people that actually went through such lengthy videos, and hopefully you actually learned something from them as well. Because personally, I myself learned a lot just by making these videos. If you liked the video, please like it, please subscribe to our channel and check out some of our other videos, and of course many others to come in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.